Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Do Business Show, the place where we give you practical tips, strategies, and insights to help you do business. And I'm back with another episode with John Welch's. Hello. Here to my right, your left, and Jakey Poo is over in the producer booth, making sure things run smoothly. So if there's a problem, just talk to him. And we have an in-studio guest who will remain faceless and soundless, but he's here. Steve's here. If you've seen TSTO, you know who Steve is. But we are here today. We're talking about business. And one of the thing we're going to talk about today, I've had several people talk to me. I've helped people with the transaction. Should you buy a business or should you start a business? I think that's a question that a lot of people have. I see a lot of times online where there's people talking about buy a boring business.
Right.
Buy a parking lot, buy a laundromat. Right. Those kind of things. HVAC.
Buy stuff that's required for today's society.
Yeah.
To function.
And I think calling it a boring business is an oxymoron, because if there's a business that's working and makes you money, why would that be boring?
I think it's boring to the person, in the mind of the person buying it, because I think what that message is like, they're trying to reach out to people that aren't in that industry. They think it's boring on the outside. Whereas if you're scaling a plumbing operation, you've gone from 1 truck to 100 trucks. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But most people aren't going to go out and buy a plumbing business that has 100 trucks.
Yes.
That business is probably doing $100 million if each truck does $1 million a year. So maybe $50 to $100 million. So, but if you're going to go out and if you're looking to buy a business, then you're probably going to look at something that has like 2 or 3 trucks. Or if you've got some capital, then you're going to buy something it depends on where you're starting at.
Well, I think that's the point that I came to is, why are you wanting to buy a business? I think a lot of the people online that you see, whether it's a reel or a short or something on TikTok, they're saying buy a boring business because that's how you get uber rich. That's usually the purpose, that someone's saying, I'm going to get uber rich. I'm going to buy a boring business. I'm going to own a parking lot that's going to make me billions of dollars.
Immediate gratification.
Immediate gratification. Absolutely.
Everybody's looking for passive income. Mm-hmm. You already have income. Maybe you've saved up enough money to where, and you have enough assets where you can get an SBA loan, which is a decent.
But you're going way down the path. We need to start.
I'm a business owner.
Well, I know, and I am too.
I'm a savvy business owner.
As I am.
I'm down the path.
And there's a lot of people that aren't.
And that's where I think it gets tricky, because the people that are seeing these things, these reels or these TikToks or these shorts that are saying, buy a boring business and you'll become a millionaire, they're not doing it because they want to run a business or they're good at the thing that they're interested in getting into. They're seeing it as a way to just make money.
Sure.
And I think at the end of the day, businesses exist to make money. However, running a business is much more difficult than just than buying a business and having it run and make you money. That's called investing.
Yeah. I mean, you can buy an operational business with people running it already. It's going to cost more. And also it's going to be, you're going to have, maybe you don't have business problems. Maybe you just have people problems, which can also then affect the business. So, But yeah, I mean, starting out, I started my business. It was somebody else's idea. I've told the story a few times, but it was somebody else's idea to start the agency I worked at. We were both at an agency, and we were both tired of the culture and the grind that agency, had. They were about 100, 150 people. And she said, let's go start a business. And I was like, okay. What are you going to do? She'll do all the design work. What am I going to do? Well, I grew up where I grew up. There's a lot of business owners here, so I'll just go door to door and start asking everybody for opportunities. And then that's just kind of how it started. And that's what I've been doing for the last 17 years.
Yeah.
Leveraging relationships, trying to do good work. And it's been, right now we're in like a hard season. We've been in great seasons, but it's hard. Most of the time, it's very challenging and rewarding, but always challenging.
I think a through line of this podcast is going to come down to, in order to be able to have a successful business, you need to be able to cultivate relationships. I think that you can't do anything without relationships.
I 100% agree with you. I think relationships is key, but I think the point of the people that are trying to, they're looking at things on TikTok, and you're on the TikTok, so you've probably seen these things, and you've seen. Are you on TikTok? Do you
No, but I'm on
TikTok?
Instagram Reels.
Yes.
You know, I delete the app like 3 or 4 times a week, thinking just to be a better person.
Right, because you feel better about
And
it.
then I re-download it.
Yeah. When you're feeling really down about yourself.
But there's a guy I follow who, you know, owns 8 or 10 businesses and has net income of $700,000 a year. I don't know if that's true or not. It's probably true. And now he's trying to...
Wait, why do you think it's probably true?
I don't know.
I think that's no. Now here's the problem, kids. Is there's a lot of people on the internet, and this is ironic because we are on the internet right now telling you about people on the internet. But trust me, because I can be trusted. I see a lot of these people
because I'm on the internet.
Because I'm on the internet. I see a lot of these people that say things like, I'm running X amount of businesses, and I make one person in particular, and we weren't even going to talk about business influencers today, but it came up in the conversation. Grant Cardone. You heard of Grant Cardone? Have you heard of Grant Cardone?
Yes.
Nope.
Okay.
Never.
He's a supposedly real estate mogul. Billionaire. I don't know if I believe it. I know he makes money. I know he has money and spends money. I don't know that all of his tactics and things that he shares are 100% accurate. However, people go down the road of they want to be like Grant Cardone, or they want to be like this person. And the reason that I think it's important that you say, I know this guy that's online that has X amount of businesses and makes $700,000 a year net. How do we know that that's true?
You'd have to buy his program or buy his course and then build a relationship with him, and then that's how you know. Grant Cardone.
So you can't know if he's really telling the truth until you buy into his program.
Well, potentially.
Theoretically.
But that brings up exactly what my thought was on this topic is, at what point do you realize you've been duped? Because if let's say this guy isn't legit, let's say this guy has this product, he throws it out there, and then you jump in, you buy the product because you want what he's selling.
Mm-hmm. I think the reality is, because I feel like at one point I got duped, but the reality is I willingly paid the money, and I didn't follow their program.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the program. It felt very rudimentary. I'd spent a lot of money on the program, and I didn't do it because I didn't like it. But I didn't follow it to the letter. I didn't do everything they said.
But you put your credit card down.
Yeah. And so, but I think the reality is, the same thing can be said about the agency I worked at. They sold real estate, programs, branding programs for people all over the country. And this is like in the early 2000s when everybody's becoming a realtor. And a small percentage of the people were actually successful with the program. But the reason is because it took a lot of money to make the program work. And I think that's the reality, is that it takes a lot of time and money to make anything be successful and work and consistent. It's not luck. It's not anything else other than consistency. And that's where, where if your business is floundering, like mine feels like it's floundering sometimes, it's like that's probably the root issue. It's just there's a consistency issue. So if you're thinking about buying a business, you have to, there's no transaction, it's not a simple transaction. You're not going to just be delivered revenue, maybe initially at the start, but then you have to decide what you're going to make of it, because you got to pay back the money. I don't know. We're getting into a real.
Well, let's start about.
Hold on. So we have to start from the beginning. We have to start from if I break this down and I use my do business method, where it's perspective, process, results, repeat. What's the perspective? Why do you want to buy a business? Why do you want to start a business? What's the point? If you're wanting to buy a business because somebody on the internet said, buy my course, there's a question as to whether or not that was a good idea or not.
Right.
if you're saying, I have a skill or I have a desire to help people and I have an opportunity to get into something that makes sense for me, then that's a good place to start. If I had a call from a client, no, not a client, a referral recently, and they said, I'm looking at buying this business. Mm-hmm. The business was, it was in the construction industry. And so we were talking about it and he was telling me about some of the numbers, and I didn't have any reports yet, but based on what he was telling me, I say, it sounds okay. So we get to the point where he's like, so they're asking me for, I think it was like $75,000. And then it's supposedly going to just run on its own. And I said, okay, what do you do? He said, well, I'm in IT. I said, so have you ever done construction? No. Have you ever done this specific construction like on your own? No, I don't know anything about it.
Whoa.
And I said, okay, so first of all, if you're going to jump into a business, especially an existing business, and based on some of the information I was getting, it was not really doing very well. It was an opportunity with a friend of a friend that he could get into a quote unquote boring business.
Right.
But he had no experience. He had no skill related to it. Now he might have other skills that might on some level tangentially attached to it to make it grow later. But if you don't understand the industry that you're in, you have no business getting a hold of a company and thinking that it's going to work.
Right.
Because the things that you have, like John, for your business, you've learned about advertising for 17 years and you know how to brand and create content. I've worked in tax and accounting for, I started in lending and real estate. And so I've been in this space for over 20 years, tax and accounting specifically for over 10. I learned a lot of things over that time that now allow me to run a business because I understand how it works, that then I can lean into the business running aspects of it that aren't necessarily the nuts and bolts and skills of actually doing the work.
Right.
It's building the business. Those are two different things.
What would you say is the most lucrative, and this is a question for both of you, what would you say is the most lucrative part of being able to build your business?
I think the biggest advantage of running a business is the freedom that you get by being your own boss. Personally, for me, I mean, there's monetary advantages, but I think the biggest value is I can cut out at 3:00 and go to my kid's game, or you went to coach last week because you had to take off at a certain. I think the freedom you get is so valuable. I think there's wealth parts of that, but personally, that's me. What about you?
Same. I mean, I think there's. I think it's how you're wired too. You know, you're going to be a business owner that wants freedom, so you can be flexible with your time. But that means your business is going to reach a certain level and level off. If you're a grinder and you just know that the fastest way to the level of status that you want is growing and scaling a business, because you want freedom when you're 40 or 50 years old versus a nice paced business for the next, till I'm 60 or 70 years old. It just depends on how you're wired, because we're all going to want different things. I like the freedom, but also that can be a trap. If you're finding yourself lounging too often, like I often do, then there's going to be things that suffer. You may have things in place, the business is running, you have a team that's doing the work, but you're gonna, if you rest on your laurels, it's gonna bite you.
Absolutely. And that's what the part, I think, when people say they're gonna buy a business and they don't know anything, never run a business ever,
right? And
don't have skills or industry knowledge, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Which is why unless there's somebody that has a grasp of running a business, they're somewhat in the industry, I typically say don't buy a business. Unless you're wanting to start very, very small and you've done a lot of research and you're saying, I want to try this thing, and you can afford to take the risk,
right?
Fine. But I think the best way to get into running a business is just by starting a business and simply by saying, I have a skill, I have knowledge, or I have an ability that can help people that they're willing to pay me for.
Right. At a certain point, if you have a lot of assets and you have disposable income, and buying a business just becomes part of your investment portfolio, what have you, that's not who we're talking to. At some point, if you are thinking about buying a business, your back is going to be up against the wall, because that has to have it has to be your motivation. It has to have your full attention. If it doesn't, then it's going to fail, or it's not going to help you achieve the freedom, or if you're seeking status, it's not going to get there because you're not motivated to do it. And becoming motivated is very hard.
Well, it's not a magic bullet.
It's not, yeah.
Right. And that's what I think I see most of the people that are online promoting buying these boring businesses. People are looking at it, and I think one of the things that I've seen, and I'm guessing Jake, you've seen, is the ATM machine idea.
I brought it up.
Right. So here's a concept of a boring business that I could see maybe making sense if you have no experience in the industry, but you've used an ATM before.
Sure. And for $2,000, you can buy your own ATM, and then you can go to a corner store and you can work a deal with them to where they're going to actually give you full, like they're going to make an agreement with you in order for you to be able to put your ATM in their store. Well, but you also have to be responsible to fill that back up with money that is going to be received.
Well, okay, so I have a client that, he's not a current client anymore, but he ran I'll just call it a shop, and they focused on cash-only transactions.
What kind of shop?
A shop.
And one of those.
It was legal, totally legal. But they had an ATM machine.
It's legal.
All of a sudden it's legal. They had an ATM machine in the shop because it was a cash loan, or they had another payment processing which charged more money. The ATM machine in the shop was used a lot. It was used regularly. He bought it himself. But the problem he got into was exactly that. There becomes a point where you have to keep refilling the machine. And yes, you're making a percentage off of every transaction. Mm-hmm. However, you're responsible to make sure that that cash is in there. So it became almost a full-time job, and it was in his own shop, of making sure that he had cash in it, and he was going and filling it. He was pulling out the big bills or however he was breaking it down, and it became a big headache. He was making some money from it.
What's some money?
I mean, it's like 2% of every transaction. He was making. I mean, the shop was making about $7,000 to $10,000 a day, and he was probably making a couple $100 a day on the ATM machine.
Okay, so
realistically, it probably would have been better for him to just have somebody come in with their own machine and him not have to deal with the headache. But if you had 1,000 ATM machines, that might make sense.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think that's important to say. If you have a need that says, I need to make an extra $200, $300, $400 a month, and I can do an ATM machine or a vending machine or something that kind of is a standalone, and you have the cash to start it, that could make sense.
You need the principle, but then you also, I think one of the biggest things too that you're referring to when it comes to the ATM machine, like allegory, is you need to diversify. You can't just have one or two ATM machines and put them into one or two arcades.
It depends on what you need. Because if true. What you're saying, if let's say the ATM's a side gig, which I think in my experience, I usually tell people, start something small as a side deal and see if it picks up enough for you to jump into it. That's typically where it makes the most sense. And if you're saying, I need a couple $100 a month, I have $3,000, let's say, where I can buy the ATM machine and have cash to be able to put into it and monitor it and make a couple $100 a month, your return on investment, if you do the calculation, it makes sense. Great. Mm-hmm. if you have the opportunity, one of the cool, boring businesses, quote unquote, that I think is actually great and could be cool that you don't really need a lot of industry experience in would be a parking lot. Like owning a parking lot somewhere.
It's just
It's just a parking lot.
Low maintenance.
Low maintenance.
Got to seal it every couple decades.
Yeah, and
Clean up the puke from the night before.
Jeez.
Yeah, you hire somebody for that.
Where is this parking lot?
I honestly, my mind just immediately went to like Southside LA.
Nope.
That's not well. I mean, I guess every parking.
I mean,
lot's
that's where you need parking.
Yeah.
Like that, there is a group of people that like will genuinely use that service. You have a large clientele.
Parking near Staples Center.
Yeah, exactly.
Parking towards any event,
any
type
event
venue would make sense. Business, those are the kind of things that I think an ATM machine don't need a lot of experience if you're going to grow it and scale it.
The ATM machine to me is like your client or whoever. It's like if you have a retail location or locations, you want to maximize as much revenue from that existing operation as much as you can. So you put in the ATM machine, or you put in like arcades, or you put in other ways to get more money from the people who are there currently.
Yes.
Like in our business, you provide CPA services, and then you also provide auditing services. Or
I do not do auditing services.
Well, either way, you should.
No.
Or fractional. You're a fractional CFO.
There we
so
go.
I mean, you start adding on services because that's the way to. You've already got a captive audience. They already trust you for this thing. You might as well offer a few other things. And the same thing can be said of that. The parking lot. I don't know what else they have. Valet service.
Valet service. Well, then you have parking structure, because once you own the parking lot, you can say, okay, we're going to build a parking structure. And then the parking structure you have to have membership to be able to use it. Like there's so many ways you could go and a parking lot. But I just bring that up to say a parking lot is something where I could see not needing much industry experience. Now, if you had industry experience, it might be better. If you're in real estate, it would be even better because you already know those kind of things.
Right.
But to Jake's point about the diversification, I actually want to hit on this. The one thing that I have found from all of my years of doing so many different things, I feel like if I had done one or maybe just two things, I would be much further ahead than I am now.
Isn't that the worst knowledge?
It is. I really feel like it's the most depressing realization is to say if I had just done, when I switched over to accounting from real estate investing, and I had just stuck to accounting and tax and not pushed into so many different areas, where would I be today in tax and accounting?
Oh, you'd have houses and all the
well,
hot
okay. I
spots.
mean, I don't know if it would have been that spectacular.
You'd be on Mykonos right now on your yacht.
But I experienced when I got into doing the accounting and then the internet and the podcasting and the YouTubing, I just really loved doing that. That was a passion.
Yeah.
And I get into these circuits of guys that are the influencers. And so I'm like, well, how do you get on stages and speak to people in big rooms and get paid for it? You write a book. So I wrote a book and I focused a lot of time on that. And I did all of the pieces to that. And then I started speaking on stages and I realized, oh, this is kind of cool. I can make some money going and speaking on stages. But I was also doing the accounting and I was also doing some of the other myriad of things. And I had a family and I was just like, man, my time's really divided.
Yeah.
And I think that at a certain point you have to realize the best way to get the most traction and make the most, have the greatest results in the quickest fashion is to do less things. I'm not saying don't try stuff. But to keep your focus on saying, if I'm going to be the ATM machine mogul, I want to buy one, then I want to buy three more, then I want to buy five, and then eventually I want to have 1,000 ATM machines.
I think that's fine. I think it's that consistency element, like where you're not distracted by too many things outside your purview or by the success of others. Because I think that's one of the things where we start to do all these different things is we get distracted by what other people are doing, and that becomes its own trap. And I hate to say it, but I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah, I think that everything boils down in all of human nature, not even just talking about business here, talking about anything outside of it. Everything boils down to the fact that human nature is repetition creates habits, and those habits end up resulting in either a positive or a negative reaction. And so if like you're saying, you want to be the ATM mogul, go get a bunch of ATMs, right? Like consistently work your way to the point where you go, I have 1, now I have 3, now I have 8, and you'll see a result outside of that. Like you'll see a result coming from the work that you put into it, but it requires you to be consistent with whatever it is that your model is, whatever it is that you want to do, whatever your passion is. You have to be consistent, or else you're gonna go, I'm bored of this now. I'm gonna throw it away.
You have to assess, like the risk of things. There's somebody that, you could go and start like a public, like a storage facility, and you get a couple of those, and then you've got some working capital. You could roll that into, keep developing. But one of the things that somebody's done that, I know they started offering insurance to all the people. Like instead of those people buying their own little insurance policies from a big insurance company, they would require that they use the insurance that is offered by the facility, which is they're basically self-insured.
Huh.
So you've assessed the risk of how often is there going to be damage done to these units? How often am I going to have to pay that out? It's probably very not often if you maintain your facility well. And now you're guaranteed to get, in addition to the rent, you're guaranteed to get insurance revenue on top of it that they're required to buy because they want to rent from you.
Yep.
So now you've got a couple different streams of income coming. Plus, when people forget their stuff or they abandon it, you get to sell it.
It can't really be that valuable, though. I mean, I guess maybe every once in a while.
I mean, that show is
Storage Wars
built on that. But I mean, that's just like a bonus maybe. Milk shop money.
Quick side, John. I saw an episode of one of those where a guy opened up a storage unit, and he goes in and he found a storage unit that had maybe a couple hundred collectible action figures from like the 90s of certain superheroes. He found multiple Super Nintendos, multiple Nintendos, all original gaming. And he found like a PS5 at one point when he went through the back of it.
That's not original gaming.
No,
That's
but
next
like
gen.
this dude like put his entire life and equity basically into this storage unit, and I don't know. Like I honestly, the only one I think he would have gotten is if he died.
The nerd passed away.
Yeah, but regardless, it's like that. I don't know. That's one of those things where you can't. Here's a good example. Let's bring it back to business. Don't hedge your bets on the fact that you can't see what's inside the storage unit before you open it up. You can't bet your entire business on just a blind idea.
Right. No, I think that's a valid point. That's a valid point. For you to just kind of go blindly into anything it's not wise.
No, surround yourself with wise counsel.
Well, and you can look up anything. Like that's the thing that is interesting these days is you can ask a friend, you can ask a colleague, but you can look up anything and you can find people that will give you stories about how it went terrible or how it went great in whatever business you wanted to start. And you can find them all on the internet, and then you can decide which one makes sense for you. Because go back to the do business method, which I mentioned briefly, and I just talked about the first part of it. But the perspective of saying, why do you want to do this business? What's the purpose? Why do I want to create a business? And then what could that business be? What's the skill? What's the ability? What's the knowledge that I have the people willing to pay me for? Then you just start it.
Right.
You just what's the process?
Right.
And I'm going to start talking to people and saying, I can do this for you. Would you like to pay me for it? They say yes. If enough of people say yes, then you realize, okay, that worked. Then I look at the results.
Well,
how did that go?
Yeah.
What people did I talk to in what way? What kind of people did I talk to? What was the thing that sold the best? And then you take that and you evaluate it and you say, I'm going to use these, and I'm going to repeat and start back at the top. I'm doing this because I'm good at these things. This is what I found to be good. And then I repeat the process again. And that consistency of that cycle eventually propels you into a place of you've got a business.
And what inevitably happens is that the people who have hired you to do that business will start coming to you with other ideas and wondering if you can help them or if you know somebody. And then you are at a crossroads of, well, this is sort of in line with what we do. And then it's like, okay, you can half butt it.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Good censoring.
Good censor. Yeah.
Half butt. You can half butt it, or
I almost feel like that's worse than actually saying the actual thing. Half butt.
I think you can just do a partial job.
Okay, you can half
not
butt it.
give all your effort.
Yes,
you can only go 50%,
or you go all in and be like, all right, now we're going to do that, and you hire to do that because, like, to your point earlier, where you're doing all those things, you can't do all those things and be everything to everybody, but you can still focus on the one thing you do well. Hire a team member, hire a freelancer to then build a program to do that another thing well, so you can offer that to your customers, and then you just do it slowly. Like a lot of people race into these things and make a little killing and then break the business. But I think if you do it slowly, methodically, and do it without trying to stretch yourself too thin, you'll keep your marriage and your children happy, and the business will grow over time. But if you try to go in real heavy, real hard, then something's going to suffer. Health, family, whatever, the business itself. But if it's consistent, methodical, and I lost my train of thought.
It's consistent. It's methodical. It's being patient.
Yes.
And all of that comes together at the end. And then ultimately you have a result of, did it work or did it not?
Correct.
And then how do I keep going? Because that's the one thing I will say about if you're running a business, it never really stops.
No.
Until the point where you decide to exit, if you decide to exit.
If you can.
And if you do, then you've been running a business for all these years. Now what are you going to do?
Well, depending on your mindset, I have a friend who sold a business for a lot of money a long time ago and then immediately went and started another competing entity once the non-compete ran out.
Yep.
And he's been doing that for the last 10 years.
Yep.
Everybody is different. Maybe if you want to end up on a beach somewhere, then that's your goal. But what are you going to do on the beach for every day?
Well, and that's, I think, so personally for me, because I've thought about this, and because our dad has talked about he's never going to retire. He's going to work forever. And I think, man, I think I'm kind of that way too.
He's going to die at his desk. He knows it.
And I think, like, if I get to the point where I have an exit, or, which I don't know that I'm in an exit kind of a business. I don't know if tax and accounting firms, depending on, I guess at a certain size, everything could be an exit.
Your book of
but
business.
I look at that and say, when I quote unquote retire and I stop working my normal job, what do I want to do? Well, personally, I want to do ministry. Like, I want to serve because I want to keep doing things. I won't ever stop doing things. And I don't think people that retire, all of them, technically really stop doing things. They just do something different. It's an opportunity to try something new, to do something you hadn't done before. Which that's way past whether you're buying or starting a business. That's now we're talking about. We're talking about end goals.
Yeah, we're talking about livelihood, right? and where we end up. I want to bring us back to, like, the topic of the conversation: buying a business or starting a business.
Oh,
you both are business owners. Mm-hmm. You both are people that have worked from the ground up. I want to know each one of you, I want you to give me 2 examples as to why somebody should start their own business, or give them also, okay, how about this? Back up. Come on, Jake. Give me one example as to why you bought why you started your business, like why it's good to start your business, and then give me one pitfall that you would tell somebody that's wanting to start their own business to avoid.
Well, I think we just gave all of those things.
I'll share one thing because I think I have something to say.
That's good. Then you should say it.
I don't think I'm employable.
Okay.
I got let go of my last 2 jobs in the midst of having started the business. This is like 2011. They were back to back. 2010 was a rough year. And I went to work for a client, and within 90 days, they're like, it's not working out. I went to work for a publishing company thinking since I got my degree in writing, this was going to be my foray into the literary world. And within like a month and a half, they're like, this isn't working out. But that boss, Rebecca Razzo, thank you, said, you should go back to your business. And my back was up against the wall. It was like late. I was right after Christmas or around Christmas time, because that was my last day. That let me work through the holidays, which was very nice. And I was just not knowing what to do. And then it dawned on me that I needed recurring revenue. I just need to do the same thing consistently for others, because I'd been doing all this project work, and it was really never me. I was just brokering everything because all I did was write and sell. And so I went to one of my oldest clients and I said, hey, can we meet? And he said, yeah, how about January 2nd? So I made up a little proposal. It was $1,500 a month. I will do these things: social, email, website maintenance. And I didn't sleep the night before, and I slid it across the table, and he said, okay, sure. And that was it. Mm-hmm. So I think it just depends on, what's driving you, and also what you're desperate to do, desperate to provide for your family. I was like, you think recurring revenue, it just dawns on you. Like, yeah, you need that. Like, I should have started as an insurance broker, like right out of college, because then I'd be golfing 4 times a week. And no, I know they work hard. But
no, they don't.
Some do. Some do.
So they work hard at golfing.
They work hard at and but it was that moment where like, oh, I need recurring revenue. And that was when it clicked. And like for the last, that was 15 years ago almost, that was what changed my business, my life. But to the point, like I'm not good at working for others, or I'm good at working for good leaders. And there's not that many good leaders out there. And so trying to be a good leader is another thing you have to take into consideration if you're going to start or buy a business, because you have to lead people. Mm-hmm. Unless it's like an automated thing and you've got chatbots doing all kinds of stuff, you're going to encounter people, whether it's you're leading your clients to their successful outcome or you're leading your team members to their successful outcome. You have to be a good leader, and it's not easy all the time. So whenever,
is it ever easy?
There's moments, but it's still.
It's always hard.
It's always a job.
Yeah.
It's always happening.
Yep. It's always a job, I think, is pretty on par.
I will say that I said at the beginning, I don't recommend buying a business unless you have a passion, a skill,
and the capital
or knowledge to be able to do the thing that the business does. I am a big proponent of starting businesses, 100%. I think the reason that you should start a business is if you want independence and you want freedom, just for not even just wealth, but from schedule standpoint.
And tax write-offs.
And tax write-offs. And we'll talk about that later. Or I've already talked about that before. You can go check it out in the library. But you have to have a good reason why you want to do it. And then once you start the business, the biggest thing that I would say to stay away from, to answer your question, is trying to do too many things at once. And I think you brought up a point of people ask you when you're looking for ways to fill your bank account as a business owner, and people say, well, can you do this? And you think in your head, I absolutely can do that. And they're going to pay me for that. So I'm going to do that. But it's not necessarily in my sphere of what I actually do. For instance, for me, I got paid to build apps also. Like I've been all over the map on all the things that I've done. And I got paid pretty well for building the apps, but I'm not an app builder. I just kind of figured out how to do it for myself. And then somebody said, hey, could you build an app for me?
Right.
And I was like, you're going to pay me for that? I need to make sure that I hit my revenue.
Figure this out?
Yeah. Well, and I need to hit my revenue for the month.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to take that gig because I need to make sure that I have cash flow to continue to run my business.
Right.
So there is a certain level of you have to balance that. Because you do have to sell things to make your business run. However, if you get too far down the road of doing something that's way outside of your circle, that can really hinder your growth, which comes back to what I said earlier, saying when I'm thinking about if I had just stuck to tax and accounting since 2008 and just rode that all the way, I don't know where I'd be right now. I'm not depressed about it.
No, of course
But
not.
I am thinking like, I could be in a different place. However, I wouldn't trade the experiences that I've learned, because the things that I've done and the distractions that I've allowed in have given me insight and knowledge and experience in things that I wouldn't have otherwise done, like this podcasting. If I hadn't tried to do this myself and been distracted by it, I wouldn't know how to do it. If I hadn't figured out how to build an app for myself, I wouldn't know that, hey, apps are kind of a cool thing. And when you have that, and we're going to talk about the Do Business app that's going to come out later next year, probably. But it's all of those things have added to where I am now. And now when I take that and I really focus it down and I stay inside my Do Business method cycle and stay consistent, that then is going to propel me, I'm hoping, into an even greater place.
Consistency.
That's what it all comes down to.
In a restaurant, the thing that you want is like, and we said this last week when we recorded our last episode, like you go to McDonald's, you go to In-N-Out, you go to any of these restaurants, and you know exactly what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. And that consistency is what brings back a regular client. And so if there is a love and a passion for something, then being consistent with that thing is going to take you there.
Yep.
What I will say is that I did look it up because I was very interested about Valet. Just in general, like that way earlier in the episode. But like I was very interested. The average income for a valet operations manager in the United States is around $120,452 per year.
That's for a valet manager?
For a manager.
So that's not the owner of the valet.
No.
That's just the valet manager.
That's the manager. Typically ranging between $93,050 to $158,651 annually.
I wonder if you could buy a valet company.
Sure.
You can. Because they're all independent contractors that work with restaurants.
Yeah.
So if you are
it'd be the contract with the restaurant.
And that's so like bringing that back full circle into what we're talking about. It's like it really just there's moments where you have to get creative and you have to figure out, is this something that I really want to do? Is this something that I want to have as a secondary form of income? Is this something that I want to do as a side hustle that I just have fun doing, like a hobby, and maybe make some money off of it? But if you're saying I want to build myself a business, you could do something as simple as valet and make this much money.
That sounds to me like a complicated bit. Honestly, it sounds simple, but insurance?
Oh, totally.
You just have to have a process for everything.
It is.
Everything's a process.
You do. That sounds to me like it's interesting though. Buying a valet business.
You have to be consistent though, and you have to be driven to do it. And that's the same thing with every single like company you could create, any business you want to start. You have to be consistent. The people that are making this amount of money, I guarantee you, there's plenty of restaurants that have valets out in front that don't make this money.
Oh, sure. That's an average expected. So you can't really go off of that as whether or not that position is good. However, the business itself is something that exists in luxury restaurants and hotels and places all over the place. So I think the gist of the conversation is you need to be careful. If you're looking at people on the internet, and we are on the internet, so take that with a grain of salt. But if you're looking at people on the internet and they're saying, I've got the new snake oil that's going to make you Iron Man.
Jeez.
That'd be sick.
You may not want to buy it.
That's good.
Would you buy it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would
you buy
100% buy it.
You have it?
So definitely do that because I would definitely buy that.
I got it right here.
Okay, so maybe that's a bad example. If somebody says,
snake oil,
if you buy this
you
business
Iron
from me, you'll be a billionaire, and it only costs $10,000, don't listen to them. Is that better?
There's
Yes.
enough free advice out there like this.
There really is. I mean, honestly, there is so much free advice that you can find to get information, to know how to do the thing or start whatever business you want to start. Unless you're acquiring a business that is in your same industry, that does the same work that you do, that you can support, I think there's very few situations where someone buying a business makes a lot of sense. Acquiring businesses is a great way to grow. And I think that there's a couple of people I'm thinking of that I've helped acquire businesses inside their industry that may be cool to bring on and have them talk about that. Because at a certain point, you've tapped out in your growth and you can just acquire a competitor, and then that skyrockets you to growth. So that's the only situation that I really think it's a good idea to buy a business, is when you're acquiring something that is in your wheelhouse. Otherwise, just start. What's your perspective? What's the skill, ability, or knowledge that you have that people will pay for? Start the process, start selling it, get the results, evaluate that, and see what worked and what didn't, and then start from the top again. What's the perspective? How did you change what you did? And then do the process, and then just keep going over and over and over. And that's a boring business, but that's how you win at business, I think. So,
All right,
solve all
boys.
the world's problems?
I think we might have solved all the world's problems. I want to sign off. I want a log line from each one of you, and I'll give my own at the end.
A log line.
Yeah, a log line. You know, like when you like an elevator pitch for a movie. Like when you get in the elevator, you go, "This is the entire movie, but it's only 2 sentences."
Basically
saying like, buy your own business, start your own business. How do you do it? What is it worth? And then put it in 2 sentences.
Start a business that you can actually run, and then acquire businesses like it to grow later, much later.
Boom. Log line.
Bet.
What'd you say?
Bet.
What's that?
It's like what the kids say when it say right on.
I don't like it.
It's them
No
saying
cap?
like it's basically like when a kid says bet, it's like them saying like,
No, I know.
"Oh, I'm gonna do it."
My kids say it all the time, and I don't like it.
Oh, your kids say it all the time?
Yeah,
They say no cap?
haven't heard that one.
Because cap is like lying.
Oh,
Yeah,
No cap is like telling the truth.
because it's open.
I can only speak for myself when I say, I don't know what to say right now. Freedom is a trap.
Freedom.
No cap.
Freedom is a no cap. Bet.
If you think you're going to be free by buying a business, you have another thing coming. Go into it eyes wide open. Be creative. Be risky. Be careful. But you got to go forward. Otherwise, crash and burn.
That's very encouraging, John.
Yeah, man, I'm super stoked about.
I'm not
starting my
here
own
to
business
encourage.
now.
I'm here to be my authentic self.
Your authentic self. That's
Yes,
good.
thank you.
All right. You said you had a log line.
Yeah, later.
That's good.